I stood one night in the dark of night on the tarmac at Bagram and watched a military ramp ceremony.
No, you didn't. You were never in Bagram. You were never at the Bagram airfield. You were never anywhere near Iraq or Afghanistan. You never entered the Middle East. The closest you got was fucking Italy. How dare you? How fucking dare you claim that shit? How dare you claim you were there? And at a 9/11 memorial, no less. So no, Harry, I don't give a fuck what Tim Walz has to say right now. Because not only did he lie about his rank, not only did he lie about his deployment, not only did he lie about why he got out, but now we have him lying at a 9/11 memorial about being in Bagram and witnessing a ramp ceremony. Fuck that dude. That is stolen valor. Not only does he need to fucking resign, but he also needs to be charged. Because that is an outright fucking lie. That man was never in Bagram. That man never deployed.
Okay, so let's talk about Tim Walz and this stolen valor situation. Now, I've been gone for a few days, but I've been following all of the noise going on about Tim Walz, JD Vance, and I have to say that I'm completely disgusted by what I've seen from the mainstream liberal media, from the left-wing media, the propagandists on CNN, ABC News, NBC. Horrific. Even the Harris campaign, Nancy Pelosi, them, because these people have been basically trash talking JD Vance, basically trying to belittle his military service. Oh, he was just a combat correspondent. Oh, he only served for 4 years. That's nothing. Oh, he didn't get shot at. Now, this is coming from a bunch of civilians who made the choice, just like we all make a choice, but a bunch of civilians who made a decision, made a choice to not join the military. We haven't had a draft in 50 years or so? So all of these journalists on the left-wing media, all of these people in Congress, these left-wing Democrats, they're trying to talk about, oh, JD Vance, he's nothing. Oh, he only served 4 years. How dare you talk about Tim Walz? He served 24 years. These people didn't serve a single fucking day in the military. But they're trying to belittle JD Vance. They're trying to say, oh, well, you were over there as a journalist. You weren't getting shot at. You weren't in the artillery unit. You weren't an infantryman. You're nobody. You're nothing. How dare you talk about Tim Walz? Because JD Vance came out exposing Tim Walz, calling out the liar that Tim Walz has proven to be in terms of stolen valor. This man has, for over 10 years, lied about his rank in the military. We need to see his DD-214. If you want to walk around talking about you are a command sergeant major in the Minnesota Army National Guard, you want to put that in your campaign, in your speeches, show us your fucking papers. Show us your DD-214. Oh, you're a liar. You won't show us that. Just like he lied about going to Afghanistan. He will often say, oh, I was deployed in support of Enduring Freedom. Now, 99.9% of the population, when you hear I was deployed in support of Enduring Freedom, what does that mean? I went to Afghanistan. But did he go? Hell no, he didn't. The closest he ever went was Italy. But he continuously talked about it. He used it to boost his own career, boost his own prestige. The man is an outright liar, and the media is trying to belittle JD Vance, trying to say, oh, you were nothing, you were nobody. Because he's exposing this line sack of shit. Tim Walz, do you know how offensive that is? I would say I speak for all veterans, but I've looked around and it seems like a lot of veterans, they're completely okay with that because they don't give a flying fuck about this man being a liar. They just want Trump to lose. They said, okay, you lied about being deployed to Afghanistan. You lied about using weapons of war. You lied about your rank. We're okay with that. As long as Orange Man Bad loses. This is how brainwashed these people are. So I speak for a lot of veterans. I can't say all of them, but a lot of veterans. We are completely disgusted with these sacks of shit in the media trying to jump in a veterans conversation and shit talk another veteran, JD Vance, because he's calling out a liar, Tim Walz, who's running around with stolen valor, using it for political gain. So what the media has been trying to do over the last week or so is gaslight. This is all it's been about. JD Vance, he's a nobody. Tim Walz, no, he didn't know he was getting deployed. Even though we have all types of statements, video evidence, witness testimony from his unit back in the day, said he knew. The media said, no, he didn't know. He put in his paperwork. He wanted to retire. He didn't know his unit was going. He didn't abandon his unit. So if his unit is saying that they felt deserted, that he abandoned them, they're liars. We're the media. We know the truth. So Let's look at some information from his unit real quick. Let's look at this video from an actual command sergeant major, a guy who worked with Tim Walz for years and years and who spoke out about it. He tried to expose Tim Walz as a liar in Minnesota, but was buried by the media there. And now on a national stage, he's exposing Tim Walz, and the left-wing media is trying to bury the story. But too bad, so sad, the story's out there and it's not going away.
Walz's military record facing growing scrutiny since joining Kamala Harris on the ticket. And now the campaign is caught tweaking his military bio. How convenient. The campaign website originally called Walz a, quote, retired command sergeant major. But now it says served as a command sergeant major, our next guest is calling out Walz for embellishing his service and says he abandoned his unit right before they deployed to a war zone. Real command sergeant major Thomas Behrens joins us now. Sergeant Major, thank you very much for being here. I want to clear something up real quick, because you knew Master Sergeant Walz. You deployed with this unit. You know all this. It's not a big world of command sergeant majors in the Minnesota National Guard. And I served with the Red Bulls. It's a great unit. Was the unit aware when Walz retired? Was the unit aware that this deployment was coming? Because someone on the left are saying, well, he didn't have his orders, so he didn't know. He knew full well that there was a deployment coming, correct?
Absolutely, and he even said it himself in his campaign announcement that came out in March of 2005. I didn't find this out until just a couple of days ago either, but he actually filed with the Federal Election Commission on February 10th to run for Congress of 2005, and in March he actually had his campaign wrote, as Command Sergeant Major, I have a responsibility not only to ready my battalion for Iraq, but also to serve if called on. I'm dedicated to serving my country to the best of my ability, whether that is in Washington, D.C. or in Iraq. He continued adding, I don't want to speculate on what shape my campaign will take if I'm deployed, but I have no plans to drop out of the race. I'm fortunate to have a strong group of enthusiastic supporters and a very dedicated and intelligent wife. Both will be a major part of my campaign, whether I am in Minnesota or Iraq. And this was actually on CNN. I mean, it's him admitting right there. He knew in March that they were going to go to Iraq.
Command Sergeant Majors are a big deal. They block the sun. Like, they're the most important enlisted member of that unit. When a Command Sergeant Major bails on a deployment beforehand, what kind of message does that send?
The message that it sends to me is, turn around and run and just keep running. I mean, go crawl under a rock, get the hell out of here. Nobody even wants to mention your name again. You're soiled. You're basically a traitor. You deserted your unit. You're a deserter at that point. I mean, what the analogy you have right there is very, very good, because I mentioned that with my family. It was like, this is like training for the Super Bowl, and then you're one game away, and then Tom Brady says, I'm sorry, I don't want to get hurt in this game, so you go play for me. It's just absolutely ridiculous. There's no, they're unforgivable, coward. I mean, you can come up with words out there. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
What percentage of the guys who went on that deployment feel the same way about Walz? Would echo your feelings?
I would guess that it's got to be in the 98, 99%. I mean, there's a couple out there that have spoken out and said, how can you do this to the guy and whatever, but he did it to himself. I mean, all I am is the messenger. He made the message, and and it was like it needed to get brought out, and I just happened to be the one that God said, you're too dumb to keep your mouth shut, so go spread the word.
So like I said, he worked there in the unit for years with Tim Walz all the time, and he was there with him, one of the ranking NCOs, and later on became the Command Sergeant Major of the unit. But he was one of the ranking NCOs. So are you going to tell him that he's lying? Yeah, that's what the media's doing. They're trying to say, no, this guy's lying. We're telling the truth. We know better. Even though we weren't there, we don't know anything about the military, anything like that. We're just going to say he's a liar because Orange Man bet. Now, let's read a post from a guy who was an officer in the unit at the time. He later on became the commanding officer of the unit. So, again, this is an officer who knew Walz also at the time. So this post here was from Trump Jr. and it's going around, making rounds on Twitter. Let's read it. Feeling a need to say this. I do not regret that Tim Walz retired early from the Minnesota Army National Guard, did not complete the Sergeant Major Academy, broke his enlistment contract, or did not successfully complete any assignment as a Command Sergeant Major. Unwittingly, he got out of the way for better leadership. Thomas Behrens was the right leader at the time. He sacrificed to answer the call, leaving his family, business, and farming partner, brother to train, lead, and care for soldiers. He earned the privilege of being called Command Sergeant Major. Like a great leader, he ran toward and not away from guns. I have no opinion of Mr. Walz's decision to leave service at the time he did. It was his right to retire early. I have no criticism of his service as an E7 or E8 in the Minnesota Army National Guard. By all accounts and on the record, he was a company chief, a firing battery gunnery sergeant, and first sergeant. I cannot say the same of his service sitting frocked in the Command Sergeant Major's chair. He did not earn the rank or successfully complete any assignment as an E9. It is an affront to the non-commissioned officers corps that he continues to gloom onto that title. I can sit in the cockpit of an airplane. It does not make me a pilot. Similarly, when the demands of service and leadership at the highest level got real, he chose another path. So this guy is making a statement, and I agree with him, saying like, if he wants to retire, even knowing that we were about to go to Iraq, you want to retire, go ahead. That's your prerogative. You've been here over 2 decades. You want to duck this deployment, you got every right to. You're not committing a crime, anything like that. Now, I'm not going to say you're not deserting us. I'm not going to say it's poor leadership, but it's your prerogative. You've earned this retirement, so go for it. But don't go around lying about things. And this is my issue. I have no problem with it. Even ducking the deployment, a lot of veterans have serious problems with that. I do think that was pretty piss poor, but my main issues are him lying about his rank for prestige, to boost his own ego, and to get political gain, and lying about deployments because a lot of people went to Afghanistan, so he's trying to use that to help him get elected. That's pretty disgusting. A lot of people died over there, man. A lot of people came back blind. I seen a guy who was literally blind, eyes burned down. I see the guy couldn't walk anymore, wife pushing him around in a wheelchair. And I worked in medical units, so I've seen these guys come back home. I've seen it up close and personal, the damage that these guys took answering the call, serving their country. Even though I look back at it, I have a lot of issues with the politics of going there to begin with, but that's a different video. But to sit there and lie about it is disgusting. To sit there and lie and say that you were among those men, or even heavily imply that you were among those men, is a disgusting action. We don't care if you left the military as an E1. You could have been a janitor cleaning toilets every day. Thank you for your service. You don't have to lie about your rank. Something I would never do. In fact, a personal story, way back in the day, I was an E4 and I was working in an E6 position. I was a specialist, but for nearly 2 years or so, I was slotted and working as a staff sergeant. And I was actually kind of upset about it because they were still paying me as a specialist. I'm like, at least pay me as a staff sergeant. But I never walked around wearing that rank. I never walked around at the time saying, no, you need to call me sergeant, anything like that. I was still an E4 specialist, just happened to be slotted in that position. That's what the officer was talking about. This guy was a master sergeant, and due to a vacancy, which is the same situation I had, we had a vacancy, didn't have a staff sergeant there, so you had to put somebody else to sit in that position. Due to a vacancy, Tim Walz had to sit in the Command Sergeant Major's position. But that doesn't mean you lead the military and go around telling people that you're a Command Sergeant Major. But he can get away with it because most of these civilians don't know the military like that. So they don't really know Master Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Command Sergeant Major, something. Okay, bravo, thank you for your service. Then you'll say, well, I was Command Sergeant Major. I was the highest rank. They're like, oh, okay. They don't question it. So he can get away with lies like that. But now he's been exposed. So we're going to get into this CNN clip. We're going to look at J.D. Vance confronting, defeating, making this propagandist, Dana, I think her name is Dana Bash, making her tuck and run from the conversation that she started about stolen valor, trying to defend Tim Walz, but it looks like it ended up backfiring on her because, again, she's a trash line-ass propagandist and doesn't really know how to lie, right? But let's get into J.D. Vance taking down this propagandist.
In this interview. But you have been on the campaign trail questioning Tim Walz's military record. You say it was shameful that Governor Walz retired from the military before his unit deployed to Iraq. I want to read you something that Joe Eustace, who is a veteran, he served with Governor Walz, said. He said that's a lie. He said he was as good a soldier as you'll find. I'm not trying to defend him. I hope people don't think that. What I'm trying to do is defend someone who served his country. I'm not voting for him. I'll campaign against him, but I don't think it's fair to characterize his service the way they have. Governor Walz served 24 years. He even stayed after he could have retired because of 9/11, more than the country asked of him. Do you honor his service?
Well, of course, Dana, I honor his service, and I've never criticized what...
You see this game that the media plays right here? Do you honor his service? Whoever said anything about his service when he was in E7, E8, nobody ever expressed issues with that. The only issues are, first of all, people saying that he deserted them. We got people from his own unit taking umbrage with that. And also, this man sat there again and lied about his rank and lied about going to Afghanistan.
Tim Walz did when he was in the military. I criticized his retirement decision, and most importantly, Dana, I criticized his lying about his own record, okay? This is a guy who was captured on video saying, I carried a gun in war. He never went to war. This is a guy who's been captured on video. As other people say, he's an Afghanistan veteran. He's a veteran of a war, nodding along in agreement instead of saying, no, I did serve my country and I did it honorably, but I never went to a war zone. I'm not criticizing Tim Walz's service. I'm criticizing the fact that he lied about his service for political gain, Dana. Now, I served in the United States Marine Corps, and you know this. And look, there are a lot of things that I'm proud about. I've never lied about what I did or overstated it because it would be beneficial to me in an election. I think that's what Tim Walz did. That's what I was criticizing. And yes, I do think it's scandalous behavior.
You talked about one of the things that he said, weapons of war. He was talking in a campaign stop about, he was trying to talk about gun control. And he said, weapons of war I carried in war. I will say that the Harris-Walz campaign did say that the governor misspoke there. Do you accept that?
He misspoke. Another word is that he lied about it. Boom. And he didn't correct the record for 50.
So this is why I like JD Vance, because the media, they're still used to these soft-ass John McCain, Mitt Romney type Republicans, these John Boehner type Republicans. Just get completely ran over. When they're confronted, they fold. That's why the Republicans had to get rid of Kevin McCarthy, because he's one of those soft-ass Republicans who just let the Democrats and the media run roughshod over him. But J.D. Vance is not that type. So she's over here trying to say, no, he misspoke. So why don't you just accept that? No. Let's call him out for what he is.
15 years until he was put under political pressure because I called it out, Dana. Whatever you want to call it, a misspeaking or a lie, I think Tim Walz should have to correct the record. Now, you pointed out a soldier who defended his service. There have been a number of soldiers who served with Tim Walz who have criticized him on the exact same grounds that I have, because it's not right to misstate or to embellish what you've done, and I think that's what he did.
And on the question of when he left the National Guard, he filed his election paperwork February 10th, 2005. That was a month before the National Guard even announced that it was possible that they would deploy to Iraq, and it ended up being 2 months. He retired 2 months before they actually got the paperwork.
But on CNN last night, Dana, one of the people who was actually in charge of him said they knew they were going to deploy to Iraq in February of 2004, fall of 2004. So he knew he was going to Iraq. He decided to quit, to retire, whatever word you want to use.
Retire.
Because he wanted to.
Such a propagandist, man. Oh, no, he retired. She knows absolutely nothing about the military. Knows nothing. She just taking talking points that she's supposed to read, things that she's supposed to say to try to push a certain message to the audience. What he did was disgusting. So we got some veterans who are going to choose to vote for him anyway because Orange Man bad. But like I said, most veterans are completely disgusting with this. And CNN putting up a propagandist to try to gaslight like this, it's not going to work.
Run for Congress. He lied about that. He said that when he decided to retire, He did not know that he was going to Iraq. That is another untruth, as even his senior military officer said. So again, I'm not criticizing the service. I'm criticizing the dishonesty. Dishonesty spoken in favor and for the purpose of political benefit. And I think that the most important thing here, Dana, is it goes to Kamala Harris's judgment. Tim Walz is ultimately going to be the vice president. Kamala Harris is in great health. I'm sure she's going to be president if she wins for 4 or maybe even 8 years.
Yeah, this guy, he's great at handling the media. So you see how he's bringing it back to the main point where you're trying to say, oh, you dishonor him. How dare you question his service? He exposed a lie, and then he went right back to what really matters. Kamala Harris is a lying sack of shit. She has terrible judgment. Now, I've been saying, and I will continue to say, she didn't choose him. The powers that be, the people behind her, the people making the decision, the deep state, they chose her and Tim Walz to be in these positions. But either way is a terrible call, and this is what he needs to focus on. While they're trying to label him, oh, how dare you attack a veteran, he's going to come back to the real issues. The people who are allegedly in charge are terrible decision makers. They're liars. Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She's a fraud, lying about who she is, where she's from, ashamed of her own heritage. And Tim Walz is lying about his military service. These are supposed to be the president and vice president?
Why did Kamala Harris choose a person who has lied about their military service? I think that is a serious lapse in judgment, and I don't want to hear from a campaign spokesperson of Kamala Harris. I want to hear Kamala Harris herself address what I just said.
You know, I've seen a lot of statements from veterans, including those you served with, saying it's just untoward to be criticizing somebody who served for 24 years.
Dana, I'm not interested in the ad hominem. I've heard from a lot of veterans groups who criticize Tim Walz. The question is, he said he served in war, and he didn't. That is a dishonesty. I couldn't care less what one or the other person says about it. I care about what the truth is. The truth is that Tim Walz didn't tell the truth. And importantly, Dana, this is about Kamala Harris's judgment. And I think that when you ask, why has Kamala Harris allowed the border to be wide open? Why has Kamala Harris supported policies that have promoted the increase in inflation? I think it goes to the heart of her judgment, and I think that that's what we should be talking about.
One last question. Donald Trump didn't serve in the military. He received a medical draft deferment for bone spurs to avoid serving in the Vietnam War.
Okay, so now this talking point. We've been hearing about this talking point for 10 years. But you know what I find funny about that whole thing? Most of the people who are talking crap about Trump, whether he had bone spurs or not, ducking Vietnam, whatever, most people who are talking about him never served a day. Never went to a recruiter's office, never wanted to join themselves. How can you sit here and talk shit about Trump ducking the Vietnam War? Didn't you? Dana Bash, isn't she the age of a person who would have been in Iraq, Afghanistan? So if Dana Bash, if this propagandist and all these other people talking about Trump bone spurs, if they chose to avoid the military too, how can they talk about Trump avoiding the military? And also Clinton, Biden, they ducked Vietnam too. But I just find it extremely hypocritical and dumb as hell. These people don't see what they're doing. That's why you shouldn't have people like this, propaganda civilians. They know nothing about the military, chose to never serve in the military, yet they're trying to sit here and jump into military matters knowing nothing about what the fuck they're talking about.
Reportedly as a favor to his father. Do you find that shameful too?
I think that Donald Trump didn't serve in the military, but he didn't lie about it, Dana. I've known Donald Trump for a long time. He really honors our veterans. He honors me for my service. Donald Trump didn't lie about serving in the military. He didn't say that he went to Vietnam when he didn't. This is the problem. I don't criticize anybody, whether they served our country or not. I think it's honorable to serve, but obviously a lot of people have reasons for not serving. I criticize somebody for embellishing their record, for lying, saying, I went to war. Dana, do you think that it's a problem that he said, I went to war, but he didn't actually? That seems to be a problem to me.
Well, they've corrected that. Let's move on to...
They've corrected it by admitting that he lied.
Let's move on to another important...
Now she wants to move on. She tried to sneak that in at the end. No, they corrected it. Yeah, they corrected it after it's been exposed. After it's undeniable. After several witnesses come out, fellow NCOs in the unit, after officers come out and make statements, after all of his campaign ads from back in Minnesota back in the day are exposed. Yeah, the campaign has no choice but to correct the record. Tried to say, well, he didn't actually go to Afghanistan. Oh, no, well, he didn't actually carry weapons of war. Well, he may have carried them to the range, but yeah, they have no choice. But now she wants to move on. She wants to move on to other topic because she has nothing. And JD Vance destroyed her because every time she tried to come up with this propaganda, oh, you're bashing the veteran, how dare you? He served 24 years. Shouldn't you be ashamed of yourself? What about Trump and his bone spurs? Trump didn't lie. Trump never walked around talking about he was a Vietnam veteran. Trump didn't lie about anything like that. Tim Walz is the one talking about he went over there to Afghanistan. He was a command sergeant major. He's the one lying like that. So it seems like the Democrats made a bad choice. The powers that be, the power brokers, they selected this freak, this weirdo. And I'm going to get into some of that weird sex stuff he's into, and I'll let another video. But they selected a man who has all types of skeletons in his closet. Stolen Valor being one of them. Did they do that research? I don't know who in hell is making these decisions, but it was a terrible selection. You got a far left-wing extremist liar as a running mate of another far left extremist liar. So good luck with that. The Democrats have nothing to offer, no platform, just two lines at your shit talking about, oh, he's weird, and we're bringing joy to the campaign. That's all they got to offer. Really? So good luck with that in November. Outside of cheating, they have no chance. So let me know what you think. Leave me your thoughts below. Share the video. Thanks for watching.